Guys, welcome to the Manual of Attentive Music. On today's episode, we're going to compare cheap gear with expensive gear and see how it sounds for alternative music. Alright, so you probably have guessed that in this video I'm being inspired by one of Kenneth's videos that he uploaded last year. In this video he compares a cheap guitar setup for Shoegaze with a more expensive guitar setup. I'll link it here if you haven't watched. It's a great video. And today I intend to do the same but with indie and alternative music. So yes, we're going to compare two set of pedals, a cheap one and an expensive one, but also with a cheap guitar and a more expensive guitar. I wouldn't say that one setup is a pro setup and the other one is not. It's like a beginner setup because both of these have a very professional sound and both can give you a very professional result if you know how to use them. I'm going to record both setups with the same amplifier and the same microphone, which is this Shure SM58, and I'm going to link timestamps to each of the setups here in the description if you want to go back and forth between them and see how they sound. We're also going to hear them in a mix, in a full band mix, and compare both of them. Alright, so for the cheap guitar setup, I've used my Squier Jaguar guitar, which is stock, haven't done any modifications to it yet. With the DOD booster and the Zoom MS50G, both coming right out of my own pedal board, which I use with my band. I'm going to use the DOD booster to boost the clean signal and make the fuzz sound a little bit less blurry. The MS50G is going to cover vibrato sounds for the clean guitar, and these are the settings I've used. And I'm going to use its cave reverb, which is a modulated sounding reverb, and these are the settings I've used. Now for a fuzz, I'm going with a classic Big Muff, and I'm also going to use a small clone pedal for some other rotary sounds. Here you can see the price of the items I've described. Some of them you can get cheaper when looking for used gear, but it's a pretty solid setup. You could use the MS50G to make all these sounds in just one package, but here I'm using more pedals because I've wanted a bigger pedal board. So this is how the clean signal sounds on my Jaguar. Now with the DOD booster turned on. Now I'm gonna turn on the small clone and I'm going to turn on the DOD booster. This would be useful in a band mix. The booster can really make sure you're heard. Adding vibrato from the MS50G. Increasing the rate, it sounds like this. The Big Muff. Here's the cheap gear in a band contest. Now let's talk about the expensive gear. I'm beginning my signal chain with the Telecaster. It's a stock American-made Telecaster going through an Earthquaker Devices Arrows, which is a pretty clean boost. It's one of the cleanest booster pedals I've ever used. Then it's going through an Earthquaker Devices Hoof Fuzz, which has a mid-focused control. It's a bit more versatile than a regular Big Muff. Also has a little bit more volume output. Going through sought-after Hardwire TR7 Tremolo Rotary. We're just going to use the vibrato setting for this demo. I've once listed these as a cheap guitar pedal. You can watch this video right here. It's just like a general concept on a small indie pedal board, also influenced by one of Kenneth's videos, but shh, don't tell him. And it was once a very cheap pedal, but now it's getting kind of rare and pricey. But if you manage to find one for a nice price, it's a really great pedal, and that's why I'm using it here on the expensive guitar setup. But if you manage to find it for cheap, get it, because it's an amazing tool for the price. It has many sounds inside it, and they all sound great. Digitech just made a fantastic array of pedals back then. I love this. I love mine, and I use it on many records of mine. Just lots of stuff. It's a great tool. Next pedal is the Hardwire Supernatural, a very coveted reverb with some very unique sounds. And here I'm also going for the modulated reverb, trying to make the MS50G and the Supernatural sound similar. That's why I chose two emulated reverbs. I've chosen the cave reverb on the MS50G because to my ears it sounds a little bit closer to the fuller sound of the modulated reverb on the Supernatural. These are the settings for the Supernatural. As it's black, I'm going to show it to you now because it's a little bit hard to see on the demo. So let's hear these expensive gear and see how they sound. Clean signal of my Telecaster. Adding the arrows. You can definitely see how it brightens up the sound. I love it. Hoof Fuzz alone. Now adding the arrows in front of it. Now I'm showing you the TR7 with the arrows. Increasing the rate. And this is how the Supernatural sounds. And here's the expensive gear in a band context. Going back and forth between them, I could see that I actually really enjoyed how the cheap gear sounded, and to be pretty honest with you, this is the setup I began playing guitar with, which was the Small Clone, the Big Muff, and later on I got the MS50G because it's pretty versatile. And yeah, the DOD booster, I use it live along with the MS50G because it's a fantastic sounding pedal, sounds awesome. And yeah, it's a really clean booster for the price. It's not as clean as the Arrows by Earthquaker Devices, but it's definitely clean. I feel that the DOD booster can get the amp a little bit more distorted and push it harder than the Arrows. With the Arrows, I would have to bring the knob up a lot to push the same way the DOD does. But that doesn't make it better or worse. They just work in a different way, probably have different purposes. So with the MS50G, comparing it to the TR7, the MS50G doesn't sound as natural as the TR7 does for me. It's really good, sounds really good. I mean, I would definitely use it on a studio, recording, something like that. As I said, it doesn't make it better or worse, they're just different sounding. So both are digital pedals, so yeah, there's no analog. Both are going to give you very nice sounds. You can also make the MS50G cleaner depending on what amp and what booster pedal you pair it with. So it's not really a big deal. The biggest difference I felt was with the fuzz. Big Muff has scooped mids. Even though it sounds really good, it's definitely a little bit harder to mix it with the rest of the band. I had a really easier time mixing the Hoof fuzz. But again, that doesn't make it better or worse. You're just going to have a little bit more work to make the Big Muff fit in with the rest of the band than it does with the Hoof fuzz. And that's the reason why I've used the DOD pushing the Big Muff, so I could make it sound a little bit better in the band mix, bringing up some of the higher mids. I didn't need to do that with the Hoof fuzz, but putting the arrow in front of it really made it sound a bit clearer too. So yeah, that's something I like to do. I like putting booster pedals in front of fuzzes because it makes them sound a lot cleaner when recording. And now, just wrap up the video, I think we should see how both setups sound in a mix. So I've panned the cheap guitar gear all to the left, and I've panned the expensive guitar gear all to the right. And the solo, I've just added the solo recorded with the expensive guitar gear because that's the sound I like the most for this specific song. If you listen with headphones or studio monitors, you're really going to be able to tell apart the difference between both in a band mix. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Also, please remember to subscribe. Most of you guys don't hit the subscribe button when you watch it, so if you want, no pressure here, okay? Subscribe to the channel would really help me a lot. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.